Tonight, another senseless murder of a woman by her partner. Amanda McAleer was killed after switching off the TV. Campaigners want more protection for women, including tougher sentences for those who push their victims to suicide.
Also making the headlines, we hear from a woman who had to fight for her life after her arm was crushed in a horror scooter crash in Bali.
Every morning I get up and I look at that and it's a reminder of, am I ever going to use my right hand again? Am I ever going to be able to do anything?
In sport, the Celtic captain Callum McGregor praises the impact of club record signing Arne Engels.
And we visit the Glasgow Southside neighbourhood, billed as one of the coolest in the world. I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. Tonight, yet another senseless murder of a woman by her partner. Amanda McAleer was strangled by John Higgins in their Glasgow home. The reason? She switched off the TV. Tonight, her killer is starting a 19-year jail term. On the day, proposals to help reduce deaths caused by domestic abuse have been published in Parliament.
There are growing calls for suicide to be taken into account, as well as homicides. The family of one woman who took her own life after suffering at the hands of her partner want tougher sentences for those who push their victims into thinking there's no other way out. They've been telling their story to our political reporter, Laura Alderman.
This is 64-year-old John Higgins, out enjoying himself during an afternoon in a Glasgow pub, watching the football. He then gets into a taxi to head home to his girlfriend, Amanda McAleer. A short time later, he beat up and strangled the 50-year-old and left her to die alone on the kitchen floor. It's a horrifying, but sadly not unusual tale. Women in Scotland are far more likely to be killed by their partners than a stranger. But domestic violence is also one of the main reasons women take their own lives.
She was absolutely stunning.
Demi Hanaway was just 23 when she died from suicide at home in Airdrie in May 2021. She'd suffered verbal and physical abuse from her partner and father of her 2 children, Andrew Brown. Something her family only found out when they uncovered messages on Demi's phone weeks after her death.
Oh, they were vile. He was telling her to go and die. Called her all different names. Messages I wouldn't even repeat. It was absolutely disgusting. We came across photographs of strangulation marks on her neck, bruising on her face, down her neck, her arms.
Andrew Brown was jailed for 3.5 years after admitting threatening and abusive behaviour, but Helen believes he should have been charged with killing Demi.
It is bittersweet. Sweet that he's locked up now, but very bitter at the fact he should have been charged with culpable homicide, and that's our strong beliefs.
So you believe he is responsible for your daughter's death?
Absolutely, 110%. Our daughter's no longer here through him, and why should he get that opportunity now to come out and rebuild his life when he's destroyed our life, he's destroyed our family? I'm sorry. He's destroyed our family.
This is where Demi was laid to rest, but her family say they'll never stop fighting for a full investigation into her death and for a tougher sentence for her abuser. Today, a new bill to help reduce deaths caused by domestic abuse has been published in Parliament.
We have a statutory model to review events that compels all the agencies involved following the death where domestic abuse is suspected or has occurred. And it's so that our agencies can work together, can identify lessons that have been learned and agree priorities for change.
Charities welcome the bill but say it's long overdue.
There's lots of aspects of domestic abuse that are just completely hidden. That's something that we're definitely trying to talk more about. There's things like child contact, economic abuse, financial abuse, all of this. And I think domestic abuse suicide is definitely one of the things. I mean, they're just ranked as, oh, she did that because she was sad.
In the last decade, 62 women have been killed by their partners, their lives cut short, leaving behind bereaved families like Demi's, who hope reform will be on the way to save others from the same pain. Laura Alderman, STV News, Airdrie.
And if you are affected by domestic abuse, there are organisations that can help you. Details are available on our website.
A woman who had to fight for her life after her arm was crushed in a horror scooter crash in Bali has told STV News she's terrified she may never regain function of her hand. Charlene Morrissey is now undergoing intensive physiotherapy at home in Airdrie.
But the Chartered Society of Physiotherapists has warned people like Charlene are being let down by a broken system and workforce shortages, despite ministers insisting the number of people in the profession has risen in the last decade. A warning. Caitlin Hutchison's report has graphic descriptions and pictures of injuries you may find disturbing.
I didn't know pain like that existed, and it's something that never leaves.
Because you're still in pain now?
Yeah, I don't even know if I'll ever have the words to describe it. It's tough.
Charlene's life changed in an instant. 1 second she was driving down a gravel road on a scooter in Bali. The next, she was bleeding out on the ground. She'd fallen sideways from the moped and her arm was momentarily trapped in the side of a moving lorry, causing her life-altering injuries.
The wheel crushed the hand completely and I pulled the arm out. And as I pulled the arm out, all the skin and the fat came off and the hand was completely crushed. And I found myself lying at the side of the road, screaming for Kenny.
I'd hoped it was just a simple coming off the bike and scraping her arm a little bit, one of the more common accidents you see in Bali. But as I come up the hill and I locked eyes with her and then looked down and saw her arm for the first time, I was convinced she was going to lose the whole arm. Blood everywhere. Her fingers were in positions that it didn't even look like a hand anymore.
Multiple blood transfusions, skin grafts and life-saving surgeries later, she was stable enough to return to Scotland. More than £100,000 was crowdfunded to make that possible and cover the costs of her final surgery in Bali that likely saved her from amputation. Now, 8 weeks on, she's back home and determined to recover as much hand function as possible. But she's worried about the level of physiotherapy she's getting on the NHS, considering the extent of her injuries.
The physio has been great. It's just sadly you can only get once or twice a week maybe. And as we know, private here is a lot.
There we go.
I had to learn to move my elbow again. I had to learn to walk again, and every morning I get up and I look at that and it's a reminder of am I ever going to use my right hand again? Am I ever going to be able to do anything that I did before?
Okay, and back down.
The Chartered Society of Physiotherapy says a critical workforce shortage in the sector is failing people like Charlene.
We're simply not training enough, we don't believe, to meet the needs of the population. Since 2021 we had 35,000 people in Scotland waiting on a musculoskeletal waiting list. That number has doubled. We're now at 70,000. We know we have 22-week waits for community services in Scotland. I mean, that's not a service. We are letting patients down.
The Scottish Government says the number of physiotherapists working in NHS Scotland has gone up by more than a quarter in the last 10 years, but that it's committed to increasing the workforce as people like Charlene fight every day to regain a sense of normalcy. Caitlin Hutchison, STV News.
A man from Glasgow, whose fiancé and extended family have been evacuated from their home in Lebanon, has described it as a terrible and stressful time for his loved ones. Military airstrikes from Israel and Lebanon have intensified, sparking concerns of an all-out war in the Middle East.
The Prime Minister has warned the more than 10,000 UK citizens suspected to be there to leave immediately. British troops have been deployed to nearby Cyprus to assist with the emergency evacuation. Vanessa Taff has more.
Going about his daily work, but Hadi's mind is on his family fleeing their home in Lebanon. He was there just last month with his nearest and dearest, celebrating his engagement. His fiancée has been evacuated with most of his family.
It's terrible, but I can't bring her here yet. It's very, very tough, especially on the highway when they've evacuated, there was no service. So trying to communicate with them and nothing's, sending, and all you hear is the news, it's very stressful.
Communities within parts of Hattie's village have been reduced to rubble. This shocking video documenting the destruction of his beloved home.
So much suffering, so much destruction. Like half my village has to be rebuilt now. They can't leave the country. Lebanese passport can't travel to the UK, and visas aren't easy to get by. So we just send them money, told them be safe, spend however much you want to spend, as long as you're safe.
British citizens have been warned to leave Lebanon immediately. For those left behind and in need of urgent medical treatment, they're getting help from a Scottish doctor.
So we had an 11-year-old with an amputated leg. We had this 13-year-old today, we operated on her today, who had a blast injury to the face that needed reconstruction. The Ministry of Health is trying to spread out the wounded into as many hospitals as possible, but the system is extremely fragile.
700 troops from the UK have been sent to nearby Cyprus to help with the evacuation efforts. The future of what lies ahead for families like Hattie's hangs in the balance. Vanessa Taff, STV News.
The comedian Janie Godley has confirmed she is receiving end-of-life care after years of living with ovarian cancer. The 63-year-old told her social media followers that she was receiving palliative care and would be going into hospice for the foreseeable future. Last week, she cancelled her autumn tour on medical advice.
Train timetables in Scotland are expected to return to normal after drivers voted to accept the latest pay offer from ScotRail. The ASLEF union says members voted resoundingly to accept the deal. Drivers will receive a 4.5% uplift backdated to April. ScotRail has been running a reduced timetable since July after drivers refused to work overtime or on days off.
CalMac has apologised for the latest disruption to the ferry service on its busiest route to Arran. A fault in one of the vessels has put it out of action, while a second is undergoing annual maintenance. One MSP has claimed Scotland's ferries are in a state of national emergency. Well, our political correspondent Ewan Petrie is in Troon this evening. And Ewan, how are islanders reacting to this latest disruption?
Well, the Hebridean Isles, which has been redeployed from Islay to serve the Arran route, has just arrived here in Troon. It will begin service first thing in the morning, but the root cause of all of this is the ageing CalMac fleet. That vessel itself is almost 40 years old and due for retirement. And the knock-on impact of this disruption is being felt as far away as South Uist. Now, 6 new ferries are in the pipeline. Those can't come soon enough for people living on the islands.
Charlie McAllister needs to get his lambs from his farm on Arran to market in Ayr every month. Bad weather meant they couldn't make it in August. And these latest cancellations to the ferries this week means he's missed it again.
I was expecting the money that I would get from them to come in, and it won't if they're not sold, and also the cost of keeping them over the winter, so it will have an impact.
Douglas Johnston was due to have surgery on his leg on the mainland today. He waited 7 months for the appointment, but the 78-year-old will have to wait even longer after being forced to postpone due to the ferry disruption.
We are blessed on Arran with having a really first-class medical group who look after us and take care of us. But when you extend that and them taking us to the mainland for further treatment, the whole thing comes apart. It's pretty hopeless, I'm afraid.
For today, this has been the only ferry serving Arran. CalMac put on an extra sailing of the Alfred from Troon to help ease pressure on the route. But the frustration from those arriving on the mainland this afternoon was clear.
I couldn't begin to tell you the number of times my family have been destroyed trying to come up here at New Year and Christmas, and the number of times myself and my partner have had difficulties getting to hospital, It's bad enough in the mainland, you know, if you go to a hospital appointment for chemotherapy or radiotherapy, you try coming from Ireland for it and it's cancelled. It's dreadful.
I was over yesterday for a hospital appointment at 2:30, which obviously I wouldn't have been able to get back, and luckily Cross House moved me forward several hours. But I mean, that was brilliant that they did that, but if they hadn't have done that and if I'd have panicked, then I would have ended up missing that hospital appointment. So yeah, no, it's pretty bad at the moment.
The Caledonian Isles had been due to return to this route after 7 months out of action, but routine checks found faults with a gearbox. There are no details on how long it will take to fix. Meanwhile, the Isle of Arran ferry is undergoing its annual check. The Hebridean Isles, which normally serves the Isla route, has been redeployed. But there will be limited space over the coming days ahead of the holiday weekend. With strong winds forecast, there is also likely to be more disruption ahead. Ewan Petrie, STV News, Troon.
Rahman is here with the sport.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Autumn Sale.
Good evening. Callum McGregor has praised Arne Engels for the impact he's made so early into his Celtic career. Engels joined the champions for a club record £11 million transfer from German side Augsburg on deadline day and has impressed both domestically and in Europe. Here's Ronnie Charters.
Showing his support for the women's team. Celtic captain Callum McGregor hoping Elena Sadiku's side can put in a big performance tomorrow night and qualify for the Champions League. But it's the big performances of one of his teammates which has caught the eye of the Parkhead skipper. Arne Engels, 4 games played, 2 goals scored and shining against Scottish and European opposition.
I seen him on the first day and I thought, right, he's a player, he can play. But also surprising, and you have to still go and deliver when the game kicks off, and he's looked a real powerhouse, he's looked good on the ball, so not surprised in that aspect, but yeah, for him to come in and hit the ground running the way he has done has been excellent, and obviously a real plus for the team as well.
Next up for the champions is a trip to face managerless St Johnstone on Saturday, with former Celtic skipper Scott Brown in the running for the job. McGregor says he wouldn't be surprised to see his ex-teammate managing in the Premiership.
Obviously I know Scott really, really well from my time here, played in midfield together for a number of years, and when you do that you understand what makes people tick and how good they really are and how much they understand the game, so it's no surprise that he's went into management, he started really, really well, and yeah, to be honest I see him having a Premiership job before too long.
Meanwhile, it's a huge night ahead for the women's team tomorrow. Elena Sadiku's side 1-0 up from the first leg and just 90 minutes away from their first ever appearance in the Champions League.
Wow, even just listening to that just now, it's wow, it gives me goosebumps. It's hard to not get too ahead of yourself because we haven't achieved that yet, but if we do that, that would just be an unbelievable achievement, and something, yeah, we all want, we're desperate to get, but we need to stay focused. Like I say, training today, game tomorrow, and let's just see what happens, but I'm feeling very confident.
The team face Ukrainian side Vorskla Poltava tomorrow night. Ronnie Charters, STV Sport.
Now, ahead of Rangers' opening Europa League match against Malmo tomorrow night, Oscar Cortez has been ruled out for several weeks after sustaining an injury in training. Well, the squad were put through their paces in Auchenhowie this morning before flying to Sweden. Nedim Bajrami and Hamza Egeman could make their European debuts for the club, while Chefte is suspended after being sent off against Dynamo Kyiv last month. Meanwhile, Malmo boss Henrik Rydström believes there was no harm in the club's social media team posting a video reminding Rangers of their 2 previous defeats to the Swedish side in Champions League ties in 2011 and 2021. Now, Hearts Chief Executive Andrew McKinlay has confirmed an analytics company will be involved in the recruitment of a new head coach. The club are close to securing a deal with Brighton owner Tony Bloom over a £10 million investment. Bloom owns Jamestown Analytics. Well, Hearts are stepping up their search for a new boss following the sacking of Stephen Naismith at the weekend. The Tynecastle side hosts Ross County this weekend, and McKinlay has urged the fans to get behind the team. Finally, basketball, and ahead of the new Super League season getting underway, Caledonia Gladiators head coach Gareth Murray says they can win all 4 trophies. The team begin their campaign at home to Manchester on Friday night, and they're hoping it will be the start of a memorable campaign.
Every club will be saying the same thing right at this time of the season. Yeah, we want to be the top team, we want to win all the trophies for sure, but I think it's kind of realistic with the squad we have, the work we have. Obviously Play Sport makes that a lot easier with the ability to practice whenever we want. We've got our own weight room, we've got a show court next door, so yeah, I think the facilities definitely help.
Finally, snooker news, and John Higgins has defeated Sean Murphy by 4 frames to 2 at the British Open. That's all your sport tonight, folks.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Autumn Sale.
OK, time to get the weather forecast now with Joe Farrell.
Light winds rolling in from the west. We'll be joined by some very welcomed ice creams. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Hello, we are going to pick up a chilly northerly wind for the end of the working week. There's an area of low pressure making its way across England and Wales through tonight. That's going to bring with it some wet and windy weather, and it will throw patchy rain up towards the central belt through tonight. And then as the low nudges away eastwards, we pick up this northerly wind. It's going to feel chilly and we'll see some frost by night. So before that, we've got showers across the far north of Scotland. This is the rain associated with that low pressure. In between, there's some clearing skies and the temperatures will be falling away. But as this cloud and rain nudges its way up towards the central belt, under that it will keep the temperatures around 7 or 8 Celsius, so not as cold as it was last night. A few spots with clearer skies will see temperatures falling away lower, but as we go through the morning, that cloud and rain drifts away down towards the south and things brighten up. So an improving picture through the day across southern parts of Scotland, but the wind is beginning to back around towards the north. That will bring with it a few showers. It's going to feel cooler through the day. So we might see Glasgow up to around 13 Celsius, but by Friday, you'll really be noticing that northerly wind. Brisk wind taking the edge off the temperatures, which will be around 11 Celsius. And it's going to bring with it a few showers in the far north, but it looks like it should stay brighter through the central belt.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And finally, one of Glasgow's neighbourhoods is among the coolest in the world. Strathbungo is the only Scottish name on Time Out magazine's annual list.
The district in the city's south side has been praised for its diverse walkable nature. Vidisha Tefari has more.
At first glance, it may not look out of the ordinary, but this has been picked out as one of the world's coolest areas.
Very vibrant, and you can walk around any time of the day.
I don't think it's as good as Shawlands, but it's now a very, very cool place to live.
God, there's so many bakeries opened up and a fantastic ice cream shop not that far away. So the biggest problem is keeping the diet down.
And for restaurants, boutiques and record stores in Strathbungo, a mention on the list is a boon.
This is our 10th year of Seamster Vintage, and we've put a lot of work into the running of the business and sort of growing and building it, and it's just really nice that it's recognised. I'm really excited to see if there what else sort of comes from that.
It's good for people to be talking about the south side of Glasgow because it doesn't get the recognition that it deserves.
There's always amazing little businesses popping up, and I feel like right now it's really hard for small businesses to kind of thrive. The people living here really want to support independent businesses and kind of support that sense of community through that.
It's been ranked above areas in Buenos Aires and Los Angeles. Regardless of the weather, this part of Glasgow's south side has now been classed as one of the country's hottest spots. Vidushi Tiwari, STV News in Strathbungo.
It's Glasgow. Of course it is.
Well, let me tell you, John, the sun always shines here in the capital, so take that, OK?
Aye, but it's cold. From all of us here, thank you for watching. Good night.
Good night.